The air in the courtroom hangs thick and still, heavy with the scent of old paper, nervous sweat, and polished wood. It's a silence that screams. Every eye is fixed on the screen. The judge is stone-faced. My lawyer, calm, methodical, asks the final question. Across the aisle, Mark sits next to his own counsel, the same smirk playing on his lips it's worn for months. Arrogance, pure and simple. He thinks this is just theater. He thinks he's untouchable. He thinks his charm, his lies, his money will make this disappear like everything else he breaks. He doesn't see it. Not yet. He doesn't see the mountain he built with his own hands, the one about to fall directly on his head. The screen flickers, showing the first image. A beach. Sun setting. Two figures silhouetted against the fiery sky, arms wrapped tight. It's her. Of course it's her. And him. And he's grinning that wide, confident grin he used to save for me. The date is clearly visible in the corner of the image metadata. It was a Tuesday. The same Tuesday, he told me he was working late on the big account. The smirk starts to falter, just a fraction, like a crack appearing in glass. He leans forward, eyes narrowing, as if seeing it for the first time. As if seeing me for the first time, the woman he left in the dust, now holding the shovel. More photos flash across the screen. Dinners, holidays, weekend getaways he claimed were solo business trips or poker nights with the guys. Each one a hammer blow, not just the image itself, but the timestamp, the location tag, the cheerful captions he'd written himself, broadcasting his new, exciting life without a single thought for the old one he was dismantling. His face begins to pale. The color drains out, leaving a blotchy, gray mask. The smirk is gone, replaced by something else. Recognition? Panic? Fear? It's a cocktail of all of them, sour and potent. His hands grip the edge of the table, knuckles white. He opens his mouth, maybe to speak, maybe to protest, but no sound comes out. Just a shallow, ragged gasp. The air is suddenly too thin. He shakes his head, slowly at first, then more violently, like a dog trying to shake water from its fur. His eyes dart from the screen to his lawyer, then to me. There's no arrogance now. Only raw, exposed terror. He starts to tremble. A low moan escapes him, barely audible, but I hear it. Everyone hears it. His lawyer puts a hand on his arm, a gesture meant to calm, but it seems to only make it worse. He pushes the hand away, stands up abruptly, knocking his chair back with a clatter that echoes in the sudden, stunned silence of the room. He sways, like a tree caught in a hurricane, ready to splinter and fall. His eyes are wide, unfocused. He clutches his chest. Another gasp, louder this time. And then he collapses. A dead weight hitting the floor, a sound sickeningly final. The courtroom erupts. Lawyers leap up, bailiffs rush forward. His name is called sharp, urgent. But he doesn't move. He just lies there, sprawled on the polished floor, brought down not by a mighty enemy or a sudden twist of fate, but by a handful of digital images he posted himself, online, for the world to see. His own undoing. My eyes fix on him, this man I loved, the man who betrayed me so casually, so publicly. There's no triumph in me. Not yet. Just a cold, hollow ache. If this story has already snagged you, pulled you in, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is in the comments below. Just drop a city and a time. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It truly does help me bring more of these stories to life. Thank you for being here. It wasn't supposed to end this way. None of it was. It was supposed to be forever, wasn't it? That's what we said, standing under that arch of flowers, surrounded by everyone we loved. Forever. The word tasted like promises, like sunshine on a cold day. I remember the way he looked at me that day, like I was the only woman in the world. Like I hummed the moon and scattered the stars. His name was Mark. Still is. He was charming, wasn't he? Effortlessly so. Could walk into a room and just light it up. Not loud or flashy, just a quiet confidence, a warmth that drew people in. That's what drew me in. That and his hands. Strong, capable hands. He was building something always. A business, a life. Our life. We built a home. Not just a house, but a home. Laughter in the kitchen, the smell of coffee in the morning, books piled high on the bedside tables. Weekend trips, quiet evenings curled up on the sofa, talking about everything and nothing. We talked about the future, about kids we'd have, schools they'd go to, grandkids bouncing on our knees. It felt solid, unbreakable, like bedrock. I poured myself into it, into us. His success was our success. His dreams were our dreams. I was his partner, his confidant, his anchor. Or so I thought. I wanted for nothing, really. Not in terms of material things, Mark was good at providing. But what I craved, what I treasured, was the connection, the feeling of being truly seen, truly loved, truly safe in the world because he was my world. I believed in him. With my whole heart, I believed in him. He was my forever. The cracks started subtly, almost imperceptible at first. Late nights at the office became more frequent. The excuses more elaborate, less believable. He'd come home smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. A strange tension would fill the air when his phone buzzed after hours. He became distant. His eyes, those eyes that used to hold mine with such intensity, now seemed to look through me or away from me. When I asked if everything was okay, if he was happy, he'd brush it off. Stress, he'd say. Pressure at work. Always work. And I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. Because the alternative was too terrifying to contemplate. The bedrock felt like it was beginning to crumble. Then came the morning I found the phone. It wasn't his main phone, the one glued to his hand. It was an old one, buried at the bottom of a drawer I was cleaning out. A relic from a past life, I thought, until it pinged. A notification. From him. To someone named Sarah. Curiosity, a cold, sharp knife, twisted in my gut. I know I shouldn't have looked. The saying goes, curiosity killed the cat, but it doesn't mention what it does to a woman's heart. It annihilates it. I opened the message app. The texts were innocuous at first. Work stuff. Or plausible deniability work stuff. Then they shifted. Pet names. Inside jokes I wasn't a part of. Plans for lunches that stretched into afternoons. And then the photos. Not just one or two. Dozens. Hundreds. A photographic diary of a parallel life I knew nothing about. Photos of them together. Everywhere. Dinners, bars, parks, weekend trips. Their faces close, laughing. Her hand on his arm. His head resting against hers. The same places he told me he was alone or with colleagues. The same smile he showed me only rarely now, flashed openly at her. And then the photos I saw in court later. The ones I would eventually use. The ones from exotic locations. Beaches, mountains, cityscapes. Sunsets and sunrises captured with a lover, not a business associate. Each image was a shard of glass, piercing my heart, twisting deeper with every swipe of my finger. It wasn't just an affair. It was a relationship. A life. He was living a whole other life and flaunting it online, in this hidden corner of the digital world, a world I never knew existed until that moment. The betrayal wasn't just the cheating. It was the secrecy, the lies, the audacity of capturing his infidelity in pixels. It felt like he was mocking me, building this vibrant, joyful narrative of his new love, while I was home, living in the increasingly gray ruins of our marriage. My hands trembled so violently, I almost dropped the phone. My breath hitched. A scream started in my chest, trapped behind my ribs. I couldn't make a sound. The room spun. The walls seemed to tilt. My carefully constructed world didn't just crumble, it imploded. It was gone, reduced to dust and photo files on a forgotten phone. The immediate aftermath was a blur of raw, primal pain. I confronted him, of course, shaking, tears streaming down my face, holding the phone like a weapon. He didn't deny it. What could he deny? The photos were irrefutable. His reaction wasn't remorse. It was annoyance, frustration that he'd been caught. As if I was the problem for discovering his secret. He tried to downplay it. A mistake, he said. It didn't mean anything, he said. Just stress relief, he said. The words were empty, hollow. They didn't match the photographic evidence of joy, of intimacy, of a shared life built over months, maybe even years. He offered flimsy apologies, promises to end it, pleas for forgiveness. But I couldn't hear them. The images were burned into my mind. Him, smiling at her, against a backdrop of a sunset he'd sworn he watched alone. Him, holding her hand, on a beach I'd always dreamed of visiting with him. The betrayal was too deep, too vast. It wasn't just a crack. The bedrock was shattered. The first few weeks were a nightmare of navigating daily life through a haze of grief and shock. Eating felt impossible. Sleeping was a distant memory, replaced by hours spent staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, searching for clues I'd missed, signs that were invisible to my trusting eyes. Every room in our house felt wrong, haunted by the ghost of a marriage that never truly existed, or perhaps existed only for me. The silence was deafening, or broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing, the quiet sobs I couldn't hold back. The humiliation was a bitter pill. He hadn't just cheated, he documented it. Even if these particular photos weren't public yet, the very act felt like a public declaration of my failure, my inadequacy. Whispers seemed to follow me when I left the house. Imagined glances. The feeling of being exposed, vulnerable like a raw nerve. Friends didn't know what to say. Some offered platitudes, others awkward silence. The isolation was profound. He was still living his life, presumably with her, while mine had ground to a halt. Deciding to divorce wasn't a choice. It was a necessity. Staying would have been a slow, agonizing death. It felt like severing a limb, painful and bloody, but vital for survival. The legal process began. I found a lawyer, a sharp, pragmatic woman named Clara, whose calm demeanor belied a steel-trap mind. Meeting with her, laying out the ruins of my life, felt both terrifying and empowering. This was it, the first step towards reclaiming myself. Mark's attitude during the initial stages of the divorce was infuriating. He acted like this was an inconvenience, like I was being unreasonable. He'd talk about a fair settlement, while trying to lowball me, protect his assets, act as if I had somehow contributed equally to the demise of the marriage. He had the audacity to blame my supposed lack of attention, my focus on home over his work. Gaslighting. Pure, unadulterated gaslighting. He even tried to pretend the affair was just a brief fling that was over. A temporary lapse in judgment. But I knew, and his continued online presence, even in the semi-private spaces I now knew about, told a different story. He wasn't sorry he did it, he was only sorry he got caught. His continued confidence, his seemingly unshakable belief that he would come out of this unscathed, was like salt in the wound. He seemed to genuinely think he could control the narrative, that his reputation and his lawyer's maneuvering would protect him. He was wrong. Terribly, terribly wrong. The legal back and forth was draining. It was a war of attrition, fought with paper documents, deposition transcripts, and endless emails. Each exchange felt like another stab. Dividing assets that we built together, discussing future finances with a man who had systematically deceived me. It was soul-crushing. My savings dwindled, eaten up by legal fees. Doubt began to creep in. Could I really do this? Was it worth the fight? Maybe I should just take what he offered and disappear. The thought was tempting in my lowest moments, a siren song of surrender. But Clara was relentless. She saw the injustice. She saw him for what he was. We were deep into discovery, gathering information, trying to piece together a true picture of his finances, which he was doing his best to obscure. He was hiding money, transferring funds, creating shell corporations. The same energy he'd put into building our life, he was now pouring into dismantling it and protecting himself at my expense. It was during one of our strategy sessions, reviewing the evidence we had, that Clara paused. She was looking at the photos I'd found on the old phone, the ones from the trips. "These aren't just evidence of the affair," she said, her voice quiet but firm. They're evidence of spending. Significant spending. Trips abroad, expensive restaurants, resorts. Was he claiming these were business expenses? I blinked. I hadn't even thought of that angle. I was so focused on the emotional betrayal, the proof of the affair itself. He always said he was traveling for work, or sometimes just poker nights that went late. Clara's eyes gleamed. Not maliciously, but with strategic insight. Poker nights don't usually involve beachfront villas in St. Bart's. And unless his big account involved a romantic picnic in Tuscany, I doubt these are legitimate business costs. If he was claiming these lavish trips as business expenses, that's tax fraud for one. But more importantly, it shows a pattern of reckless spending during the marriage. Spending that depleted marital assets. Spending that could be used to argue against his claims of limited income or his attempts to lowball you on the settlement or spousal support. A spark ignited within me. It wasn't just about catching him. It was about the consequences of his actions. His arrogance hadn't just hurt me, it had created a paper trail, a digital footprint that could be used against him legally. This wasn't just karma, this was strategy. This was using the weapon he'd inadvertently created against him. The midpoint shift. From victim to strategist. From reacting to his moves to planning my own. The quiet determination solidified into cold resolve. We would use the photos. All of them. Not just to prove the affair, which in a no-fault state like ours wasn't strictly necessary for the divorce itself, but to prove his dishonesty, his profligate spending, his attempts to manipulate the financial outcome of the case. The strategy was set. We started compiling everything. Every photo with a date and location stamp. Every cheerful caption. Every tagged friend or location that contradicted his sworn testimony about his whereabouts or financial state. It was painstaking work. Digital forensics met emotional archaeology. Each image I reviewed twisted my gut, but I pushed through the pain, focusing on the objective. This wasn't about revenge, not entirely. It was about justice. About not letting him walk away from the wreckage he created without consequence. About ensuring I had the means to rebuild my life after he had so carelessly demolished it. Mark, sensing a shift in our approach, escalated. He became more aggressive in the legal filings. His lawyer accused me of dragging things out, of being emotionally unstable, of trying to bleed him dry. He launched a PR campaign among mutual friends, spreading rumors, painting himself as the wronged party, the successful businessman being unfairly targeted by a bitter ex-wife. He still hadn't grasped the true threat. He thought we were just fighting over money, over property. He didn't realize we had the receipts. Literal and metaphorical. The pressure intensified. Phone calls with Clara were frequent, long, and often disheartening. His tactics were working on some level, sowing seeds of doubt in the social sphere, draining my emotional reserves. The financial strain of the legal battle weighed heavily. There were days I felt like giving up, like I was drowning in a sea of legal jargon and emotional turmoil. The deepening crisis. Everything felt overwhelming. The future looked bleak, uncertain. He seemed so powerful, so protected by his status and his lies. Was I strong enough to fight this fight? Could I really stand up to him and his machine? Then came the date for the final hearing. The day we would present our case. The day the judge would make a ruling. The weight of it was immense. This was it. The culmination of months of pain, struggle, and quiet preparation. The turning point. There was no going back. Surrender was not an option. Not now. Not after everything I had endured. I looked at the binders Clara had prepared, filled with exhibits, each photo, each caption, each piece of metadata a silent witness to his deceit. This wasn't just paper, it was armor. For the first time in a long time, I felt a surge of something other than pain or fear. I felt determination. Cold, sharp, unwavering. I would face him. I would see this through. I would stand in that courtroom and present the truth he had so desperately tried to hide. The night before the hearing was sleepless, but not from fear. It was from anticipation. A coiled energy. I wasn't the naive wife anymore. I wasn't the heartbroken woman sifting through digital debris. I was a survivor. and I was ready for battle. Which brings us back to the courtroom. The polished wood. The thick air. Mark's initial arrogance, a thin veneer over something brittle. My lawyer, presenting the case methodically, clinically, building the narrative brick by brick. She wasn't dwelling on the emotional aspect of the affair. She was focusing on the financial implications, the timeline discrepancies, the pattern of behavior that contradicted his sworn statements. The photos weren't just proof of infidelity. They were proof of fraud, of perjury, of a deliberate attempt to deceive the court about his assets and lifestyle during the marriage. The first photo flashes up. The sunset beach. Mark's smirk is still there, albeit a little tighter. He probably thinks this is just to embarrass him, to show the judge he cheated. He doesn't get it. He still doesn't get it. My lawyer's voice is calm, measured. Exhibit A, she says. Dated date. Mr. Smith's social media account. Location tagged as Street Arts. Caption reads, "Couldn't ask for a better view or better company, Mr. Smith. You testified under oath that you were at a business conference in Chicago on this date. Could you explain the discrepancy?" Mark shifts in his seat. His lawyer leans over, whispering something. Mark clears his throat. Yes. That was a photo I took earlier. Posted it later, a weak lie, easily demolished. Clara moves to the next photo. A mountaintop. 2 figures. Exhibit B. Dated date. Location, Aspen. Caption, "Skiing with my favorite Mr. Smith. You stated you were visiting your mother in Ohio this week. Can you reconcile this image with your testimony?" The color starts to drain from his face. He tries another excuse, even weaker than the last. He's fumbling. He's losing control of the narrative he's so carefully constructed. And then the avalanche begins. Photo after photo. Each one a nail in the coffin of his lies. A dinner in Paris while he claimed to be at a local charity gala. A photo of him on a yacht in Monaco while he was supposedly struggling to meet payroll. Lavish gifts documented in photos, purchased with funds he claimed were tied up in investments. The sheer volume of evidence, the undeniable timestamps and locations, the cheerful, damning captions written in his own digital hand. He watches them flash by, his eyes wide with dawning horror. It's not just that he's been caught cheating. It's that his cheating, his arrogance, his belief in his own cleverness, has utterly destroyed his legal case. The photos aren't just proving an affair, they are proving perjury. They are proving deliberate financial deception. They are proving that he has lied to the court, under oath, about his assets, his income, and his whereabouts during the marriage. Every smug selfie with his mistress from an exotic location is now a piece of damning evidence proving his financial dishonesty and his contempt for the legal process. The smirk is long gone. His face is a mask of disbelief and fear. He looks at me again, truly looks at me, and for the first time I see it. The recognition of the trap he walked into. The understanding that he built this trap with his own hands, click by click, post by post. The sheer, unadulterated, blindsiding force of realizing his own hubris has brought him crashing down. The plot twist wasn't just that I used the photos. It was how I used them, not for emotional effect, but as cold, hard proof of his deceit in the one area he thought he was untouchable, his finances, his carefully constructed image of legitimate success. He starts to tremble violently. He clutches his chest, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His eyes roll back slightly. He makes that guttural sound, a choked gasp that echoes in the silent room. He pushes away his lawyer's hand. Stands up, unsteady. Sways. And then, the collapse. A sudden, heavy fall to the floor. The sound is sickening. The courtroom is chaos. Shouts, movement, a flurry of activity around his prone body. Paramedics are called. The judge calls a recess, her voice sharp, cutting through the confusion. I just sit there, watching. The man who is my life, my future, now lying on the floor, defeated by his own digital footprints. There's no feeling of elation. No triumphant roar inside my chest. It's quiet. A vast, empty quiet. A cold satisfaction settles over me, heavy and still. He thought he was so smart, so untouchable. He never saw it coming. Never saw that the very thing he flaunted, the very thing that proved his betrayal, would be the instrument of his downfall in the most critical arena. He wasn't just caught, he was utterly, publicly, and legally undone by his own hand. The hearing is adjourned. He's taken away by paramedics. I leave the courtroom in a daze. The legal outcome follows swiftly after he recovers. The judge doesn't look kindly upon perjury and deliberate financial concealment. My case is significantly strengthened by the irrefutable evidence provided by his social media posts. The settlement is far more favorable than anything he had ever offered or contemplated. He is held accountable, not just for the affair, but for the deceit that followed. The aftermath isn't a fairy tale ending. It's a quiet, sober rebuilding. The scars remain. The memory of the betrayal, the public humiliation, the sheer pain of watching my life shatter. But there is also a profound sense of vindication, of having stood firm, of having found strength I didn't know I possessed, and of having used his own weapon against him. He built his new life on lies and flaunted it online, never imagining that those very pixels would be the stones used to dismantle his old life and crush his attempts at deceit in the new one. The victory is bittersweet. I got what I deserved legally, a foundation to start over. But the cost was everything. The marriage, the trust, the naive belief in forever. Walking away from the courthouse that day, I didn't feel victorious. I felt released. Released from the constant tension, the fear, the uncertainty. Released from the need to fight. The world still felt a little fragile, like glass that had been expertly put back together, but you could still see the faint lines where it had broken. But it was whole again. Or at least it was mine again. The photos that had haunted me, that had represented his betrayal, now represent something else. A lesson. A cold, hard truth about consequences. And the quiet power of resilience. He collapsed under the weight of his own lies, captured for eternity online. And I stood up and walked away towards a future I had to build, brick by painful brick, photo by photo, until the past was just a silent gallery of lessons learned. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt betrayed, underestimated, or found strength in the most unexpected places, I'd love to hear your version, whatever it may be. Drop a comment below with where you're listening from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It truly helps bring more of these stories, these moments of human struggle and resilience, to life. Thank you for being here.